Greetings, everyone. Welcome to another Make Loud Monday. This week is going to be another episode of a series I call Hot Shit, and this is where I feature a song that I've been working on, something in kind of an unfinished state, but I'm hoping that I can share with you a little bit of the process that went into it so you can see, how I go about doing songwriting and what's happening in real time. And also so I can get some feedback. Hopefully you guys will leave comments, what you think about, the song, the recording techniques, lyrics, whatever else it is. Love to hear from folks. Whatever you think about it, always happy to hear it. So this week we're going to be talking about a song that actually came out of another project. So I was working on the recording, last week's recording. I was kind of pulling a song called When You're Not Around out of the dustbin and trying to figure out what needed to be done for it. And one of the things that was really necessary for that song was to re-record the solo section. I'd done it with a variety of different instrument types. None of them really seemed to work, but I wanted to try a fuzz sound. And so I pulled together a fuzz signal chain, which I will share with you. It started out with the Mojo Mojo pedal, with those very same settings. Then into the ripped speaker. And the ripped speaker is an interesting fuzz pedal because it has this rip function right over here on this side. There we go. Which kind of acts like I think it's a voltage sag, but whatever it does, it ends up making the gate, the fuzz sound kind of gate and flake out every once in a while. And the result of that is that it ends up really damaging or really diminishing the sustain. So at the end of the signal chain, I use the Keeley compressor, and you can see that I keep the sustain up, fairly high on this. And when I went ahead and played that signal chain, I liked it so much that I felt like while it was appropriate for the solo section in When You're Not Around, it really was deserving of its own place as a core element of a song. And that song, just the sound itself was, what I would call like bloody knuckle, dirty, broken glass. And the idea of broken into shards came into my mind. So I just said, all right, I'm going to create a new song. Actually paused what I was doing, created a new song in Studio One, and called it Shards. And so let's go ahead and flip on over to the Studio One session, and we'll take a look at the beginning steps of Shards. So here we are in the Studio One session. Bring this record head back to the beginning. And the very first thing, like I said, I just wanted to capture the idea. So what I did was I laid down some just repeats of a basic rhythm track. Pretty simple, just, like an E harmonic with, or an open E with a harmonic E and then a D. And this is what it sounded like. And with a little turnaround there at the end. And so I did that, and as you can see, I recorded it 4 different times. So the first 3 are basically the same pattern, and then at the end, I'll just play the very end of it. Instead of playing 16 bars or 4 repeats of the sound, I went a little farther, but it's without that little turnaround at the end. So here's kind of what it sounded like, and then at the end I just sort of let the effects run off. So here's what the last one. Turn around. just let it run off into the end. And that was pretty much all that I started out to do. I wanted to record that, and then the other thing that I wanted to do was, I had this idea about Shards, so I kind of started thinking about like, well, what's the cadence of it? What's the lyrical cadence of this song going to be? And I knew I had this idea of being broken into shards, so I needed to just sort of figure out what the vocals were going to be. And so I just started out with, again, from the beginning of the song, I just kind of sang what first came to mind, and that was this.
Got no plans, living in exile, waiting for something to come. Bring my life, meaning and purpose, not like now.
I just wanted to let it play there to let you hear that where I left room for the turnaround, and so it ended up being no rhyming couplets, just that very rhythmic kind of delivery that sort of matched the cadence of the rhythm track for the guitar. And then at some point there was going to have to be a place where I talked about being broken into shards. So I went ahead and came up with an idea for the chorus, which was this, and then we'll solo in that. Okay.
Broken into shards. Broken into shards.
So just was going to repeat broken into shards across that pattern. And like I said, since I was working on the other song, wanted to get back to it. I captured the essence of the idea with the rhythm track, with some thought for what the chorus was going to be, and a little bit of lyrics. And just to kind of map the pattern of the lyrics, I used a technique, very simple, just like a scatting technique. And I just wrote it out. So it was like da 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 da. And that was, I literally wrote that out in my lyric sheet and said, I'll figure out the words for this later. And I put this to bed, and that's where we were at the end of day one. So skip ahead to day two, and when I came back to the song, it wasn't really laid out in this way, so you'll have to just pretend that the arranger track isn't there. I had these three verse sections and another verse section that was going to be the end of the song. I had an idea for a chorus, but I hadn't laid out the structure for the song. And when I thought about it, I have these 4 repeats of the rhythm track, and it didn't really make sense to just sort of continue with that idea on and on, especially considering that there was going to be a lot of vocal density to it. So I decided to cut each one of them in half. So it's 8 bars or 2 repeats of the verse, and then I added a refrain. And for the refrain, I came up with this little vocal section.
It's outstanding. It's outrageous. It's incredible. It's outstanding.
So that just repeats 2 times. And so we have, if we think about it, we have 2 verse, two chapters of the verse, or 2 repeats of the verse, 2 repeats of the refrain, and then the chorus. A lot of lyrical content there. So I wanted to add in a bridge section and come up with some other guitar, some other melodic treatment for that. So that's what I added in next. So we'll add that in, and now let's just listen to the second half of the refrain on up through the, hold on, I gotta expand this a little bit so I can be a little bit more accurate. Okay, so we'll listen to the second half of the refrain and then the bridge into the chorus.
It's outstanding. It's outrageous. It's incredible. into shards.
So that structure seemed to work well, because otherwise we would have gone from here.
It's incredible. Breakin into shards.
And it would have just been too much. So I wanted to give the song a little breathing space. So I built in these bridge sections. And again, if we look at the composition as a whole, then it just kind of becomes a repeating pattern. We start out pretty intense right in the verse, that refrain section, bridge gives us a little breathing room, back into another pretty intense chorus section, and then again repeat, and then the end of the song. So that was kind of the next step. And then I wanted to start thinking a little bit about the percussion and the drumming. So for many of the heavier songs that I write, and I think this one certainly qualifies, I've been really focused on using the toms for kind of a tribal drum sound. So if we go back to the beginning of the song, right about here, then you'll see kind of what we started out with.
Got no plans, living in exile, waiting for something to come. Bring my life meaning and purpose, not like now.
So the cymbals were actually added later. I just started out with that tom, 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 tom. And again, it mirrors the cadence of the lyrics. So it just becomes kind of a repeating pattern. But as we got into the bridge, we wanted to back it down a little bit. So rather than continuing with all the toms, just went to a simple hi-hat. Right through the bridge. Kind of doubling up a little bit on the cymbal with a ride. And then ramping up.
Broken into shards.
Ramping up into the chorus with the toms again. And that's pretty much the consistent pattern that I added for the drums throughout. So by now, most of the parts of the song are there except for, you guessed it, the bass tracks. And I went ahead and went with another high gain setting and used the Mojo Mojo pedal again for the bass. And when I did that, having a pretty high gain pedal on the bass, as I picked it up, there was a lot of string noise just handling the instrument, and it just brought to mind the idea of those like early hair metal pick drag sounds. And I was like, all right, I think I've got my idea for how I'm going to start this song. So here's the bass track along with the intro. Let's listen to it.
Got no plans, living in exile, waiting for something to come. Bring my life meaning and purpose, not like now. When it comes, gotta be ready, muscles strong, reflexes sharp. DEFCON 1, locked and loaded, time has come. It's outstanding. It's outrageous. It's incredible.
So that's pretty much how it came together for that section. And the next bit, after putting together the bass, which was really it's just kind of the same pattern, the same scale, same key, but I did it, with a bit of an inversion. So some of the notes came in different orders or at octaves. In fact, what ended up happening was that the rhythm track that I recorded was the inversion, and the bass ended up being kind of the root scale for it. A lot of music theory there, and I don't even understand all of it. So let's move on, shall we? It just, to my ear, it sounds good. Again, curious what you all think. But then when I put together the arrangement for this, as I mentioned, I kind of had 3 repeats in a row, and then I had this 4th section that was kind of the same as the verse and refrain. But rather than having a 4th verse, I decided to put a solo in. And a lot of times I'll put a solo in the middle and then bring a verse back that kind of is a resolution to the storytelling of the song. But this one, it felt more like this whole song is basically just a street fight. And, there had to be sirens and fireworks and something crazy at the end. So I put the solo at the end. And for this, I wanted to use a different fuzz tone. I didn't want to go to clear sound because so much of the song is heavily saturated and overdriven. So I broke out kind of a secret weapon, and that is this pedal right here. This is the Beltsville Legend from NSP Effects, and this pedal, it has an amazing fuzz tone, but it has a feature on it that intimidated me for a while. This setting right here, this middle knob right here, is an oscillator. I am not an electrical specialist, but from what I can tell, it basically just generates tone when there is no signal coming in. So if there's no input signal coming from the guitar, then the oscillator will generate a tone, and where you set it on this dial indicates the frequency at which that tone will originate. But what's really cool about it is that it's really responsive to the things you do with your guitar. So if you turn on a different pickup, I don't know whether that changes the impedance or whatever it is, but it actually changes the oscillating tone. If you alter your volume knob, it changes the oscillating tone. If you mess with the tone control, it changes the oscillating tone. So I found an oscillating tone that I felt fit the music pretty well, and I decided to just, rather than fight with noise, which is the reason why I so often bring out the old noise suppressor here, because there's so many different sources of interference in this room. Rather than fight the noise, I wanted to use it in a musical way, and this pedal lets you do that by using that oscillator. So let's go ahead and listen to just kind of the middle of this last chorus onward, and again we'll kind of expand it out so you can see where we are in the song. So starting right from the middle of the chorus here, let's listen.
Into shards, no time to hesitate. Broken into shards, but I'll still dominate.
So you can hear it kind of swell up underneath, and by the end of the chorus, it was almost beginning to obscure the vocals a little bit, which is fine because we've heard a lot of those. We've heard that refrain over and over again, even though the response to the call, broken into shards, each time the response is a little different. But that's all right. It worked the way I wanted it to work. And I just, for argument's sake, I want you to hear what it would have sounded like if we went from the solo. If we just, let's skip ahead a little bit here. So I'm going to play to the end of the solo section, and then it goes back into the refrain. But I chose to leave that tone in place. So let's listen. So if I had gone back to the original tone, it would have sounded, in my opinion, a little bit anemic getting back to that. So I kept to the same tone with the Beltsville Legend, and just played again another inversion of the basic rhythm track. So you can see how it keeps the intensity. up at the end of the song. This song is not the kind of song that's going to gradually fade away. This is a song that's gonna go up in flames. So let's just listen to the last bit of it.
Time has come.
And there you have it. That's the song Broken into Shards. I'll leave a link. I've got it up on SoundCloud right now, so I'll leave that link open for a little while before I pull it down. Sometimes I'll leave working files up there, so if you want to follow me on SoundCloud, feel free to do that. And again, just please do leave a comment. If you've listened this far, I'd love to hear what you think. Positive or negative, I appreciate the feedback. I appreciate anybody paying attention to what I'm doing here on the channel. And speaking of what I'm doing here on the channel, right now, that song is the 15th song on the new album. And I don't know if that's going to be the final lineup, but it's close enough. And it's been a while since I've done one. So at the end of August, in about a week and a half's time or so, I'm going to do a listen party live. So we're going to listen to all the songs that are currently tracking for the new album in whatever state they're in. Do it live. Would love to have you attend. Love to have you participate, offer questions, feedback, comments. And like I said, I'll be live. I'll be answering things. And I'll make sure that I post I'll pin a comment about that, about the specific date for that. I have to schedule the exact date for it based upon my calendar, but it'll be sometime before the end of August, because we're getting close. We're getting close to the place where we're going to start finalizing the second album and try and get that out this year. Okay, thanks again for everything, for paying attention. Hope that you had fun today, and until I see you, take care, and we'll see you soon.